This is Anarchast.
Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Anarchast, your home for anarchy on the internet. This is a really important and special episode of Anarchast. I have Lyn Ulbricht coming in from her son, Ross Ulbricht, has been kidnapped and put into a cage by the government, and this has been going on for almost a year now, actually. Time flies. And I want to be a little careful about how I ask her this first question, because everything that we say or do right now could sort of affect Ross's current case in front of the criminal courts in the U.S. So I'm not going to ask Lyn how she became an anarchist. I'm going to ask Lyn, how did you become a voluntarist?
Okay, well, if we go by the definition of I don't want to have a ruler, and I don't want to rule over others, and I abide by the non-aggression principle of no force, I think I've always felt those things. And I think that they're very much in tune with our traditions of freedom and liberty in this country. And what has concerned me, besides my own personal concerns about my son in this case, is what I've seen up close and personal that the government is doing in the way they're prosecuting it, and apparently from the motions that were just submitted by our attorneys, how they investigated it as well.
Yeah, and we're going to get into all of that. I really want the anarchist community to understand what's going on here and to support as much as possible Ross Ulbricht and Lyn in trying to help him get out of this terrible situation where there's no victims, and he's been framed on a number of different things. We'll get into all of that. But for anyone who doesn't know, what they're saying in court is that Ross Ulbricht is Dread Pirate Roberts, and he was operating the Silk Road free market, they call it black market, a trading area on the internet. And there was a number of things that went on around October of last year. They initially said that he was trying to murder somebody or something, which is very typical for the government in what they do when they want to get somebody and they really have no evidence or proof of any wrongdoing, especially in regards to there's definitely no victims, that's for sure. And so they initially started on that. And so, Lyn, if you could, why don't you just sort of talk us through what initially happened and then all the way through to today and what's going on now?
Sure. Well, as you said, Ross was arrested on October 1st, and that was in San Francisco, so he's put in county jail in Oakland, and in solitary confinement, where he would remain in solitary confinement there and in New York for a month and a half. He was put in New York, in MDC Brooklyn, he was put in what's called the SHU, or Segregated Housing Unit, where they put people to punish them. This is a man with no priors, no record of violence whatsoever, and for a month and a half, these were the conditions that they put him under. Since then, he has been in the general population, of course, totally peaceful, and in fact, he's been a very positive influence. He's had a yoga class, he's conducted a physics class, he's been, we would say, a model prisoner, but awaiting the opportunity to be able to review the evidence that the government claims it has, to participate in his own defense by going through discovery. They say they have 4.5 terabytes of it, which takes a long time, but they delayed, or someone delayed, his being able to access this for 5 months. So only very recently, I think about a month ago or less, no, it's been that, about a month ago, he has been able to start accessing it, and his trial is November 3rd. It's scheduled for November 3rd. It's not a lot of time to be able to sift through all of this information. So that's what he does most of the day now, and
how does he get this access to this information?
He is now finally able to have a laptop that finally has software that can read it, and he goes to a special room it was a whole process where would they allow him? Sometimes guards will just go, no, you can't, arbitrarily. For a while, he wasn't getting fed at all day. Various things. We worked these things out. Of course, the conditions of the chair is causing him back pain, because he's concentrating for hours and hours. It's, you know, it's endless, seemingly, but he is persevering and wading through it. Very difficult situation in not very great circumstances. In fact, guys that come from federal prison to this facility, they're always saying, God, what a dump, I want to go back to prison. This place is horrible. I mean, it's pretty bad.
Yeah, and that's also is another thing that the government in the U.S. does a lot. Mark Stevens, who's an anarchist lawyer in the U.S., I just watched a video of him, and he was saying how they won't even give him any of the evidence until sometimes the day before the trial. And they'll just wait months and months and months. They do all these very underhanded, very dastardly things just to try to make it as horrible as possible for everybody, when of course the only real criminals that I can tell that are involved here are the government, who have kidnapped him, tortured him, which is solitary confinement for 6 weeks. That's torture. They're not feeding him sometimes while they have him kidnapped. This is just unbelievable. And for the anarchists out there, we really need to be more active in supporting these sort of things, because this is going to happen to a lot more of us over time. Trust me. The less that we do, the worse it's going to be. And I'm not saying to fight or even to necessarily picket or anything like that, but spread this information as widely as possible and make sure that people know what's going on, and put pressure on the government to not do all of these horrible, horrible things they're doing. Now, I know, Lyn, that you just emailed me yesterday, I believe, or this morning, saying that there's been a whole bunch of new things that have happened since we last spoke in PorcFest in July. Maybe you can update us on that.
Sure. Let me just quickly address a couple of points you made. First of all, you're right. Joshua Draytell, Ross's attorney, told me that they typically operate by ambush, where they will wait till the very last minute before presenting evidence, so that the defendant does not have an opportunity to rebut that evidence or what their allegations. And one of the things in these new motions that I want to talk about is how general the indictments are. They say things like, when they define people, they go, others known and unknown, and locations as across the world or elsewhere. And how do you bring others known and unknown from elsewhere to a witness stand to cross-examine them? And so what happens? Is it the night before the trial we get a name? And then how do we proceed with the defense? As far as the allegations, they say series of narcotics violations, but don't specify which ones, for example. They talk about malicious software without specifying what malicious software. Alleged felonies. Again, how do you defend yourself against this? This is unconstitutional. Your due process rights is that allegations are specific. And yet, when the defense tried to clear this up before submitting the motions and demanding this, the prosecution answered with an email very dismissively saying, you have everything you need. This was their response. So now in the motions, they're saying, okay, who, what, where, when, and how. That is his right to know, because he has to be able to defend himself in court. The other point you made is that, yes, precedent will be set here. So this isn't just about Ross. It isn't just about Silk Road. It's about how the government will use whatever precedent is set here to going into the 21st century in the digital age, and also just in court. Because if the precedent is set, then that means the same kind of situations will be prosecuted in the same way, and they will have that power to do that. So what happens in this case will affect all of us and will affect the internet. So anyway, as regards these motions, the new motions address very fundamental rights which is mainly Fourth Amendment, which addresses illegal searches and seizures. Just to be clear, because a lot of people go, oh, well, that's just getting off on a technicality. No, it's not. In fact, our forefathers had the American Revolution to a great degree based on this exact issue. The British would issue general warrants, which happen to be the same kind of warrants that are being used in this case, when they bother to get a warrant at all. And they would use general warrants to go into someone's house and rummage through their house, looking for whatever they could find. Usually seditious papers is what they were after, in order to, hang them, basically. And because of this, we had an American Revolution. And because of this, they wrote the Fourth Amendment. This is our protection against an overreaching government. And if they are allowed to trample all over this in this case, and it will put us all in danger. It's far more dangerous than any website could ever be. That's really the issue here. It's not, I understand that some people might not be sympathetic to Silk Road. That's incidental to what is actually going on here and what is actually very, very serious.
Yeah, it's incredibly serious. A lot of this stuff, the police state in the U.S. has been ramping up unbelievably over the last few years, and unless people start to wake up and start to do something, the U.S. is going to get worse and worse. And I hear these stories like Ross every day with people. They get evidence planted on them. They don't get any access to even defend themselves. All these so-called rights or things they have in the Constitution, they don't have access to any of them. One of those is right to bail, reasonable bail. He has no priors, no victims that we know of. And he wasn't even offered bail, I don't believe, or obviously not. And usually it's so egregious that no one can even pay it. It's just unbelievable. And it's gotten so out of control in that just this week, the Department of Justice, Department of Injustice in the U.S. Just said they finished a 9-year investigation on FedEx. And they said after those 9 years, they found that there was a few times that they transported packages from pharmacies that were illegal, that had some illegal substances in them. And so they're actually taking FedEx to court in a criminal court. I don't know who's going to have to go to jail, like every single person in FedEx. But at this point, at this rate, everyone's going to be in jail in the U.S. pretty soon at the rate they're going. So this is incredibly important, and it's even more important for my viewers, just because Ross is an anarchist. He believes in freedom and peace and nonviolence, non-initiation of violence, and he's been the total victim of violence. And so this is really important. So he's going to court in November again, is that what you said?
Yeah, but let me just say something about the FedEx case, because they're using the same logic there that they are against Ross, which is called transferred intent. Makes one person responsible for the intentions and actions of another. So they're making FedEx responsible for the people who use their service, and they're alleging that Ross is responsible for the actions and intentions of the users of Silk Road because he allegedly provided them a platform. Just for that reason alone, they are saying there was a conspiracy. And this is very dangerous. This expands the criminal umbrella tremendously. I mean, if you're responsible for yourself and other people and what they do. And Eric Goldman actually recently wrote in Forbes how this threatens to put a huge chill on the internet, because no website host has ever before been held liable, criminally liable, for the actions and intentions of its users. In civil court, if an individual, if you wanted to sue Ross in civil court for the exact same conduct, he would be immune. But because it's the federal government, he's looking at draconian repercussions. And go ahead. Well, so that's a dangerous anomaly right there. And what it does is it puts a crack in the door for precedent, again, to be set for website hosts possibly to be criminally liable. And as Eric Goldman says, hey, illegitimate things happen on websites. And if you hold the website host liable, well, who's going to go in? Who wants to open up a website? It's going to put a chill on the whole thing and on freedom of expression on the internet.
Oh, absolutely. They're doing it all over the place. There was one San Francisco website that had a number of escort services that were on there that were advertising or something, and they went after the website. And just the fact they went after FedEx, which, like you pointed out, is exactly the same as the Silk Road in this case. The reason they're going after Silk Road and FedEx are the same. It just goes to show how insane this is getting now. They just want to put everybody in jail, and for the Constitution's over. They don't listen to any of that stuff anymore, and it's really sad. And there's going to be something that's going to happen, because this can't get worse and worse forever. At some point, people are going to start to wake up, hopefully. And actually, I see a lot of hopeful signs of that. And but this is just reaching the most brutal, tyrannical government end at this point. Without the last thing they haven't done yet is concentration camps and actually started killing people. But you can actually make the case for how they're doing that in numerous different ways. But the U.S. now, at this point in time, has more people in jails than any other country on a percentage or on a total basis than I think any other country in history, and by far at this moment in time. So this thing is just out of control, and a lot of good people are getting swept up in it who have never hurt anybody. And so that's why this is so important.
No, absolutely. But one good sign is that the Supreme Court recently ruled in Riley versus California that digital property is protected under the Fourth Amendment, because the federal government was saying, well, no, it's digital, so it doesn't count. And the Supreme Court did rule that it does. And that's a big factor in this case, because of course everything on it is digital, everything is anonymous. And so that was a good thing. So we have our small victories here.
That's good, and just keep it up. And one of the things that I really find sort of sad about people today, a lot of people, not everybody, is their unwillingness to fight, and their unwillingness to fight against tyranny, against people who are really doing evil things because they're scared. And I think you might have learned a little bit about this during this process. I've always believed this for some reason. My wife believes this as well. We just do not back down to people attacking us. And that's the one sort of thing that sort of separates anarchists from pacifists, is that we will defend ourselves, and you can never stop fighting. And so I just want to give you all the best wishes and tell you that I'm out here trying to do what I can. Hopefully many others are going to do the same, and I think you already have had many. I just looked at your website. You've had over $100,000 donated to the cause so far, so that's great. Hopefully we can get that up and get more people just out there and fighting against these things. If we're going to just keep lying down, they're just going to keep stomping all over us. These people that are doing these things are obviously sociopathic. They obviously don't have any feeling for others. They have no empathy. If they did, they would never do anything like this to people like Ross, because there was no victim. When there's no victim, you would never create a victim. And so it's not going to stop until people start to wake up. And on that note, there is a lot of really good news. People are really waking up in many different ways. I've been writing a lot about it, but it's going to be a process here. So we just have to keep up the fight and not back down. Just as you were pointing out, the founding fathers of the U.S., they didn't back down to being tortured, hung. A lot of people went through terrible things to fight against what they saw as the tyranny of the UK. Of course, they accidentally created their own worst tyranny in the process, and that's the whole problem with statism, is that sociopaths will always gravitate to it and take control of it, because that's what they want, is power. Good people, empathetic people, do not want to control other people. So by creating any sort of system where people have the given right to control people, it will always result this way. It's actually been going on for thousands of years, as written about in the Bible. But thanks to the internet, people are starting to slowly figure it out, and figure out that anarchy is peace, love, and prosperity, and that collectivism in all its forms, anytime you initiate violence against others, which is what government is evil, and we should not put up with it.
Could I bring up one other point about the motions that I think is very important?
Please do.
The government has not said how they found the Silk Road servers. They will not say, apparently, so far. And this is a big question. first of all, for Ross's Fourth Amendment rights, for us to know that it was legitimate at all, that the evidence was legitimate, but also brings up the question of the NSA and parallel construction in the case. And this is a very scary thing. If this is indeed the case, we don't know, but it's not an unreasonable question considering the revelations about the NSA and their illegal actions against citizens. Then we're talking a very serious thing here. And I just wanted to point that out, that that is part of the motions, that we are demanding, or we meaning the defense, that the government reveal their methods in finding the Silk Road server. It's really important.
Yeah, no, that's great. Yeah, so like I said, we really got to support these things. We can't cower and hide. Anyone who thinks, oh, I shouldn't get out of the internet and say these things because what if they come after me? Well, they're going to come after you one way or the other. You might as well stand up and fight and go down with your chest stuck out and be proud that you stood up against tyranny. This is the point it's getting to right now. And I don't mean to make it sound too unbelievably horrible, but it really is going to be, and is already unbelievably horrible for many people, including all the people that the US government has attacked all around the world, which is millions and millions of people. So
we are at a crossroads. We're at a place where we need to decide, and we're going into really going into the 21st century and our digital future. And as one lawyer said, this is the birth of law as applied to our digital future. It's our decision now. It's going to be decided what kind of internet we have, what kind of communications we have. And so it's extremely important. It's not just about a drug site and one guy at all. It is really the birth of law as applied to our digital future. And you're right, it's very important for people to be aware. And of course, we're talking peaceful. It's in our Constitution that we do stand up for our rights here. And we have we have a duty to do that.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. It's definitely a crossroads for sure. And one of the other sort of side stories to all this is the war on drugs is ending right now. States all over the US are legalizing marijuana all over the world. Colombia just announced today they're going to have medical marijuana. It's stupid they call it medical, but whatever, they're legalizing it. And there's talk all over, including the United Nations, which is just a den of snakes, but they are even talking about just completely legalizing or decriminalizing all substances on Earth. And so that's another sort of side note here and there's even still people in Colorado where they completely decriminalized cannabis or marijuana, and many people are still in jail because they had possession of marijuana. This thing is just ridiculous. We're at a total crossroads, and people got to wake up and spread this information. That's really the main thing, is spreading the information. When people hear what we're talking about, if they have any sort of soul or any ability to hear or listen to rationality, they will realize what's going on and they will start to rally against it. But until that point, there's not much we can do. You brought up using violence. If I thought using some violence would get rid of this system, I would go for it, because I see them using violence against us every day, but it's so giant. You cannot fight it with violence. And then secondly, as anarchists, if we're going to try to win people over to our position of having a world without rulers and with non-initiation of violence, and we go around and we're blowing up buildings all the time, which we're not, the people who do that for the most part, 99.99% are what are called anarcho-communists, and they're actually just communists, and they actually ruin this word as well for us. So it's a real interesting time right now. And I just want to say again, the number one thing is to get this information out there and to support these sort of things. So if you want to finish up with any final comments, Lyn, and then please let us know where we can go to get more information and to help out Ross.
Yeah, we have a giant fight against a Goliath here, and we really do need help. Of course, we need donations. We have to pay the lawyers. They're being very patient, but it's a very expensive case. It's a very complicated case, and they're doing a huge amount of work. So any donations are welcome. You can go to freeross.org and donate. You can donate with Bitcoin, PayPal, credit card. Very appreciated. But in addition, we need help in all kinds of ways. It's just our family and some friends. It's it's I and my immediate family, and you know, we're fighting a Goliath, and we need help. So if you know contacts or ideas or anything you can do to step up. Another thing that this lawyer said, who said it was the birth of law as applied to our digital future, his final comment was, watch it as a spectator at your peril. And the thing is, it isn't just about us. It's about all of us here and what kind of future we want, online and offline. And it's an important case. It's going to be historical. It's a landmark case. It's precedent setting. And it's up to us what kind of precedent it sets. And it can set precedent that protects our freedoms and our rights. That can happen. And so I invite you to join us to help us make that happen.
Yeah, no, thank you, and keep up the fight. Never back down to people who are attacking you, ever. And that's how we lose. If we just keep moving forward, keep defending ourselves, never initiating violence, but always defending ourselves. These sociopaths, these people are actually real weak inside. They have no soul or heart. And if we can get out there and push our love, our heart, our soul, but bravely. This is, you talked about Goliath. We all know the David and Goliath story and who ended up winning that one. So this is what we got to do, never back down. And for all the people watching this, if you're sitting there and thinking, I hear it all the time, how can I help? How can I make the world better? Here's one way, just get involved. And as Lyn said, they need a lot of help. And I'm sure she'd be happy to hear from anybody out there who wants to help in any way. And please do so. And so that's it for Anarchast, your home for anarchy on the internet. Peace, love, and anarchy.
This is Anarchast.